This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Newton Shotclutty.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis.
The Download is brought to you by Podscribe. Find out more at podscribe.com.
This week, video's role in podcast discovery where it exists. Insignia acquires Veritone 1 and Oxford Road. Spotify is tuning their sax. I promise that one will make sense. And brands are focusing on spending with fewer influencers. Let's get started.
This Wednesday from Tom Webster at Sounds Profitable. Last week, Webster wrote the beginning of a short article series looking at two distinct groups of respondents found within this year's edition of the podcast landscape. The two groups are dubbed Audio Primes and Video Primes, each consisting of respondents who consume 75% or more of their podcasts via that chosen medium. Audio Primes primarily consume audio podcasts, and vice versa with video. This week, focus is shifted to how these two groups find their favorite podcast. Note the question is not how they find podcasts in general, but how they found their specific favorite show. Unsurprisingly, YouTube takes the lead with Video Primes, with 66% of respondents using the platform when they found their favorite show. Audio Primes introduce a curveball to the equation, as the top three discovery methods are Spotify and Facebook, both scoring 14%, and then YouTube secures first place with 48%. A quote from Webster, quote, "Let that sink in for a moment. Nearly half of the segment of the podcast audience that predominantly listens to podcasts admit that they found their favorite podcast on a visual platform. That fact didn't change the overall behavior of this segment, which is overwhelmingly to listen, not watch podcasts. Nonetheless, they added their top show via YouTube, and this should give us pause. What if it were true that not only does video drive podcast discovery, but also that podcast discovery drives video?" End quote. Webster then pulls a slide from last year's Sound You Can See study that asked respondents, why is using YouTube for podcasts better than using an audio-only service? If one sets aside the obvious top answer, YouTube is where I consume other content, the remaining top responses paint a picture. Video is important, it's easy to use, it has ways to engage and comment, it has better recommendations than audio apps, and it is easier to share content from. Audio Primes might primarily listen with their ears, but they're still shopping with their eyes. Audio-first podcast apps lack a focus on video integration, and audio-forward podcasts lack the video element needed if apps did push video discoverability. Podcasting is still audio-focused, but the current audience of podcasting is telling the industry they want more.
This Tuesday from Ashley Carmen at Bloomberg, investment firm Insignia Capital Group, LLC, has announced the acquisition of two podcast advertising agencies, purchasing Veritone 1 and Oxford Road. With the acquisition, Oxford Road CEO and founder Dan Granger is now also CEO of Veritone 1. For the immediate future, the two companies will continue to remain separate, with plans to eventually combine the two. A quote from Granger in the official press release, quote, "Brands have been missing out on the full power of audio and creator-led content because these highly fragmented channels are challenging for firms without deep subject matter expertise. Our mission is to redefine the value of these channels for advertisers." End quote. Granger goes on to say combining Veritone 1's tech and data platform with Oxford Road's innovations will create an agency that, quote, "sets a standard." Granger goes on to say combining Veritone 1's tech and data platform with Oxford Road's innovations will create an agency that will, quote, "set a new standard," end quote. While Veritone 1 and Oxford Road are Insignia's first step into podcast advertising, the company's public portfolio shows several e-commerce, retail, and marketing agency investments that could easily dovetail nicely with podcast advertising.
This Wednesday from Sarah Fisher, writing for Axios. Three sources familiar with behind-the-scenes information at Spotify tell Axios the company has built their own supply-side platform, SSP, to scale automated ad offerings. In the early stages, the new SSP, internally named Spotify Ad Exchange, or SAX, will focus on video advertisement. Spotify's first demand-side platform, DSP, partner for SAD is The Trade Desk. As of last week, an SSP plugin connecting Spotify's video inventory to the trade desk is being tested. The goal of the partnership is to connect North American advertising clients to Spotify's video ad inventory, with a future intention to bring audio into the mix. This renewed focus on video advertising comes with the Monday announcement that Spotify's video inventory now has invalid traffic and viewability measurement provided by DoubleVerify.
This Tuesday from Sam Bradley at Digiday, according to a survey of 200 marketers by influencer agency Insignia, there is a growing preference to work with influencers who have sizable followings. This is defined as over 500,000 followers. This has a knock-on effect of causing influencers under that threshold to feel left out, while headlines say the creator economy has been growing fast. Industry experts tell Digiday that while micro-influencers, that's 10,000 to 50,000, and nano-influencers, under 10,000 followers, are viable investments for marketers, economic factors lead to clients favoring larger accounts. While spending is increasing for those smaller influencers, including higher rates, brands are also noting higher maintenance costs that encourage them to favor fewer, bigger personalities. Podcast influencers can bridge that gap, as even our sizable following shows retain strong parasocial relationships between the host and their audiences, allowing for leaned-in engagement on scales influencers with the same number of social media platform followers can't match. Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's episode, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. This week, I've got for you, American Public Media takes home MarTech Award. Marketplace's Million Bazillion Live school tour, presented by Greenlight, reached 63 schools in 20 metropolitan areas across the United States, promoting financial literacy in underserved communities. Top podcast advertisers for September 2024 and their rankings. Magellan AI shares the top movers and shakers in podcast advertising over the past month. How Brittany Clevenger is affecting change at BetterHelp and broadly across podcast marketing by Lindsay Rittenhouse. Ad Age has posted their 40 under 40 honorees, including BetterHelp's Director of Growth Marketing. Spotify adds auto moderation tool to help podcasters manage comments by Ivan Mehta. Tools include the ability to blacklist words and filter out inappropriate comments. And finally, Audible Audio Compass 2024. Almost every second person listens to audio content. The source for this one is in German, as it is a German Audible study. This year's Compass found 46% of Germans regularly listen to audiobooks, radio plays, and podcasts.
And that was The Download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or on the download section of soundsprofitable.com. And thank you for sticking with us as we bring you the top stories you might have missed from the past week. I'm Newton Shuttlecotty.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Newton Shuttlecotty, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to Spreaker for hosting The Download, and thanks to you for joining us. Robot.
Download complete.